Hello. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess
Good
my
morning.
video is not exactly good.
We can hear you, but we can't really see you, I think.
Yeah, let me think something about that. Is it better now?
Much better.
Yeah, this Apple cameras are not that good. So should we begin then? Okay. So let's see what we have got on our agenda. Is my screen?
Yeah,
sorry, it has been a few weeks since I had a serious meeting, but yeah, it's nice to be back. So what do we have today in the agenda? So we have Oktoberfest discussion, Tecton security audit, which is a topic from the previous meeting, and sandbox project status proposal. Joining the inclusive naming initiative and the Sig events update. Are there any other topics you would like to discuss today? I guess not, but if you have anything, please edit it to the list. Okay, so for Oktoberfest, good news that we have Oktoberfest officially announced by the DigitalOcean. So you can see that there is a new website. Yeah, this site is basically the same as before, and the rules are pretty much similar to 2020. And as we discussed 1 month ago, we are going to participate at the Continuous Delivery Foundation. So currently we have 2 projects which are enlisted. It's Screwdriver and Jenkins. So the question to other projects, is there anything you're planning to do? And do you have things prepared? So I see that Artelius is ready. Any other project?
I think the only links that are updated, Oleg are Jenkins and Ortelius. And I think if Screwdriver's planning on participating, if you have a URL that you can send over to me with the instructions on how the community can get involved in your in whatever you're doing for Oktoberfest, send that over to me so I can link it. But yeah, so far it's only been Jenkins and Ortelius.
Yeah, maybe I misunderstood the discussion, but I thought that Screwdriver is participating. So GTN is on the call.
Yeah, we'll send this over. I didn't know that link was up.
Okay, thank you. And what about other projects? Do we have anything from the CD Foundation side or from other projects?
Not from the CD Foundation right now.
And Tecton?
Nothing as far as I know.
So yeah, it would be nice if we could do something, but I guess we are going to announce it anyway. And yeah, probably we need to adjust announcements for projects that do not participate, or maybe create a placeholder, because I'm pretty sure that Tecton or Shipwright have a lot of newcomer-friendly issues. Same for Spinnakers or Jenkins. So maybe for the projects that don't have a landing page, we could just link newcomer-friendly issues. It's previous year. But I'm pretty sure that there is quite a lot of issues for newcomers. So
Yes, we do have issues with help wanted marked or so.
Mhm. So maybe it's something I can follow up with Jacqueline about linking at least something, because it would be nice to have the projects listed.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as it's ready, as soon as the community are ready with like I said, kind of like how Ortelius did it, or how the Jenkins community did it, that they created like a blog with instructions on like what kind of tickets, where to find the tickets, how to get started, all that kind of stuff. So those are really two good examples. So take a look at that. When you're ready, just send me the link over and I'll update it on our page.
Yeah, so this page is also is in CMS. It's not a configuration as code, right? I guess so. Okay, thank you. So the next topic is security audit. By the way, for Oktoberfest, I will be organizing a few events, and I already reached out to the outreach committee, so maybe we could do at least grand opening for the CDF for all projects. Okay, for Tecton security audit, who did add this topic to the agenda for the next meeting?
Yeah, I don't know that we have much to say on this one. So the only thing, Tracy came back with a potential date in 2022 from the third party that would perform the security audit. So we plan to discuss it actually in a meeting after this, the Tecton governance board, whether this is fine or we want to try to push for an earlier date.
Yeah, it takes quite long. Okay, it would be great to get this running because, yeah, for the projects we also need to create a template for such reviews.
Yeah. So just to give a complete picture of what happens until now. So we had an initial meeting with the folks from, I forget their name, sorry, Choice of Fit, that's the name of the company. And yeah, so we discussed about what it would look like. And yeah, so Trace of Fit just went back and looked at their schedule and they proposed 2022 for starting of the process. Yeah, I think we would probably like to have it earlier than that because if we would like to have it to have a security audit done before we go to V1, and so we'll see if we are able to move it to an earlier date.
It will be great. And is the current timeline for Tecton graduation? Because my understanding that it's one of the topics on the critical path.
Yes, I think it is. I'm not sure. I don't think we have an explicit requirement for graduation, but let me.
Yeah, I think we do, but at the same time, when Jenkins was graduating, we agreed to not apply this requirement because there was no process established for security reviews. And I would say that is still a case. Is it process? Yeah, graduation criteria. So graduation stage, yeah. Did we remove it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that there was a security audit before. Oh, project life cycle. we still have the duplication of information. So gradation stage. So last time we agreed to use this page as a source of truth. Yep, there is no security audit right now. So it can be parallel activity. This is a good part, right?
Yes, in any case, it's something that we definitely want to do, and we'll, yeah, we'll try to. I mean, we are available and ready from TechTalk community, so we just need to, yeah, make sure that the third-party company Trace-of-Bit is available to perform the audit.
Yeah, it's nice, and yeah, thanks for working on that. Yeah, are there any other projects planning security audit in short term? We don't plan it for Jenkins. We invest quite a lot of time in security tools like LFX security adoption or CodeQL scanning for all of the repositories. But for formal audit, we don't plan it right now.
So Screwdriver has actually done many audits as part of our internal paranoid tools from Yahoo. But they are within our enterprise, but we haven't published it in public. I'll see what we can do to make, if we can get some of these reports out in public.
So it's tooling scanning or independent audit, because it's two big differences.
So we have done both. We do have an internal paranoid teams who are responsible for security for the entire enterprise organization, and they constantly bring in third party. I don't recall quite out of my head what were the names, but because this is something which is used internally for all Yahoo application builds and all, it's being audited heavily. I'll see what I can do to get some of these reports in public.
Yeah, if you could get that, it would be nice.
Yeah.
Because for us, it's still important to build a pattern, and yeah, eventually, for the graduated stage, of course, we will need to reintroduce the security audit requirement, like CNCF does. So getting information and experiences for that would be useful.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you. Anything else on security audits? Okay. So then I would like to recover two threads from the governance mailing list. I poked them a bit. So the first one is sandbox project status. So I sent the message maybe 1 month ago, and at the moment there has been no consensus about that. So my question to the TOC members is, what's your current opinion about reintroducing the sandbox stage, basically with the same conditions as CNCF? So the idea that having a really low entry bar for sandbox projects, 2 approvals from TOC members, and if these approvals are got, the project is officially affiliated, but it's expected to evolve towards incubating stage, and if it doesn't, it can be excluded from CDF. So basically, it's just a status which allows to get more projects involved in the kind of initial seed rounds for the CDF.
So I can, I responded on the mailing list, and I can summarize maybe the points in there. One of them, I don't remember which order they were in. One of them was, you're saying reintroduce the stage I don't think CDF has ever had a sandbox stage, but I don't know for sure because I don't know how far back the history. I don't know the history all the way back. So
you're totally right. It has never had it. So what we had it documented because some of the documentation was copied over from the CNCF.
Right.
And I believe Andrea removed it 2 months ago. So
sure. Okay. So then the question is either if it had been removed, why was it removed? Oh.
I guess it was choice of words on my side.
Yeah, that's okay. And if it wasn't removed, then at some point during the creation of the process, somebody somewhere must have said, you know, CNCF has sandbox, but CDF won't. I'd like to understand a bit more where that decision came from. For my part, we recently went through this with Shipwright and didn't find the process to be terribly difficult or you know, cumbersome. So I personally don't have the feedback that the current stages are too hard. If we're getting information from people saying like, I would contribute this project, but the requirements are too high, that would definitely be useful to steer the conversation. Do we have projects like beating down the door but unable to meet the incubating requirements? Does anybody know of any?
Well, the problem that we don't have projects beating the CDF door in any means right now.
Definitely. It's hard to know whether just this page is keeping people away from ever talking to us, right? It's hard to know whether these requirements are enough to stop people from ever reaching out. But I guess I'm asking if anybody knows, if we suddenly had a sandbox stage tomorrow, would you donate some, would you, the person listening to this, whoever it is, have something that could meet those requirements and join?
Yeah, so we have a few projects which potentially could join. So for example, in Jenkins, we have Update CLI, which is a spin-off project. It would technically, we discussed it with maintainers. They would be interested to have it a part of CDF. But it doesn't qualify the requirement right now because there are just 2 independent users, not 3. Then healthy number of committers. I doubt that 3 or 4 contributors qualifies as healthy number. Ongoing flow of commits, yeah, it does. And versioning scheme probably. But yeah, the main question is here is adoption. Because for projects, it might be difficult to get initial adoption. And this is actually where the CDF could help. So if we had a sandbox status, so the project gets sandbox, probably it gets some assistance from my CDF marketing team, it gets adopted by some users. They either get feedback or they get active users. In any case, it might be available. For us, yeah, I can come up with a few examples here and there, but yeah, right now for me it's Update CLI, which is one of the projects for Jenkins. Also, we have events special interest group where there is an ongoing question of whether we would onboard a standard for events. And here again, if we follow this criteria, it might be a problem. How we could have a draft standard which would be used by 3 projects right now. It seems to be a very, very high bar for that. So
yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
One of the things I would probably recommend instead of doing the sandbox is that we change the wording here on the incubation stage where it says must achieve all these requirements to must achieve these requirements, and you can get exceptions from the TOC to move forward outside of those requirements. So like you were saying, 2 independent end users versus 3, and they've met everything else. I think where the TOC could go ahead and vote to say that that is good enough to get by I think that would be an easier way to let people, into the incubating stage without creating a whole new sandbox. And I can give, if you're interested, I can give the history about the sandbox and the CDF. I mean, the CNCS, if you want me to go down that road, because I was there when it happened.
Yeah, would be nice.
Okay. So what was happening when the CNCF first started, and it was really just coming out, and they had just the incubating and the graduated stages. And what was happening was they were letting the bar to get into incubating stage was pretty low, and people were just submitting projects without any, not a good number of committers. It was pretty, I would call them like weak projects. And what would happen is they would try to get into the incubating stage of the CNCF so they can then go get VC funding. So it's all around VCs looking at CNCF projects and going and picking those to go ahead and fund them as part of the process. So what they ended up doing was they ended up raising the bar a little bit higher on the incubating stage, and then to still get the people to join, they created the sandbox world. Because what they're trying to do is trying to distinguish to VCs that this is a sandbox project versus an incubated project, which is the incubated projects were more serious than somebody just trying to troll around for money. That's kind of the history of what happened on the CNCF side.
And yeah, thanks a lot for this background. Basically, here incubating stage is copied from CNCF. So yeah, Steven said it's high bar.
So I've actually, you mentioned earlier that there are that this information is duplicated, and I thought this actually looked wrong because Shipwright does not meet these requirements. We do meet the requirements in the project lifecycle documentation, which is duplicated and inconsistent. Shipwright doesn't have 3 contributors. We have 2, and but the incubation requirements are like sort of like you were describing for Sandbox. 2 people on TOC approve it. There's a steady flow of commits. It's generally looks like a healthy project. It adheres to the IP policy, has a code of conduct, things like that. I think these are the requirements that Shipwright meets. It has met, is meeting. And I think that is that this reads to me like a lower bar than the one in the other doc. I wonder if this is a documentation issue that we should just deprecate and remove, or at least align these 2 docs together. And if in the process we make the incubation stage more like this version and less like the other version, then the bar will be lower without having to invent a new stage, and lower without having to lower it so much that, anybody, if the bar is so low that anybody can do it, there's sort of no, we have a different set of problems. So I wonder if maybe the solution is to align these 2 versions of this.
And I think there's actually a third one, because for Ortelius, we only needed 1 TOC sponsor, not 2. And we were working off of the project proposal that is in the CDF repo. So that one is a little bit different as well, from what I remember. I'd have to find the exact page, but it's the one where you fill out basically your application to become a member. That one has some different requirements as well, from what I remember. Let me see if I can find that.
Yeah, definitely. Then yeah, it makes sense to adopt 1 document. So for me,
And one thing just in general, that I think is a misnomer when you become a project, that all of a sudden you're going to get people wanting to contribute. That just doesn't happen. You really have to go out and do the grassroots and reach out to people and get them to join. That's what we found from the Ortilia side, starting up from scratch. That people, just because you got your name on under the CDF, doesn't mean you all of a sudden have another 50 contributors.
Of course not. So what you get is assistance with marketing and contacts with end users of the CDF. But yeah, there is no magic in the world. You still need to convince people that they have to try out your project and that they need to invest in that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's some marketing that happens, but it's not going to be, it's not to the level that you are able to rely on that to go ahead and be able to groom contributors off of that.
Have we done some sort of analysis on the impact on resourcing of supporting a lot more projects?
Well, we briefly discussed it with Tracy when we had a sync up. So what was my proposal for that? That sandbox projects basically, yeah, they're onboarded to CDF. They can get basic assistance, like let's say retweets, etc. But at the same time, I wouldn't expect them to be a key player in any outreach program. So yeah, social media maybe, but if you talk about any bigger program, you rather need to be an incubating project. In such case, I don't think that it would have any serious impact on the CDF. Maybe Jacqueline could share the experiences for marketing and how would the number of projects impact these activities?
I think it might depend, because depends on like what kind of marketing support each of the projects needs. So I think it would be more like a case-by-case basis of what we would be able to support.
For sandbox projects, right?
I mean, I think if a project is part of the CD Foundation, it's gonna. I don't think it'll differentiate the treatment it gets from other projects. So we'll try to do whatever we can to support it, just like we've been, doing with all of the other projects. Yeah, so I wouldn't anticipate any change there.
So I think the end goal of this, right? The point of adding a sandbox stage would be to make it easier for projects to be proposed and accepted. The historical context of the CNCF sandbox issue is I think really useful, because we don't have that problem. We don't seem to have the problem that CNCF sandbox was invented to solve. So if we were to create a sandbox stage, we would need to have some reason for it. If the reason for it is some different reason for it. If the reason for it is the existing incubating bar is too high, we can just lower that bar in ways that are helpful. It sounds like there isn't even a clear idea among us what the bar is. Like there's at least 2 bars and maybe 3. So resolving that seems useful. And would probably help, like, if we can't tell what the bar is, then some project off the street can't tell what the bar is. So maybe even just resolving this would make the bar easier to clear, and more projects would be interested in it. I don't know if if Update CLI meets these requirements. If they do, then come on over. Or if there are other projects.
This requirement seems to be quite good in this regards because it doesn't have strong metrics with regards to adoption or contributors. So 2 sponsors, but the rest is just demonstrating something. Well, just demonstrating potential. It's not like you have to have 3 end users or whatever. So
Right.
for me, if we just said that this project lifecycle is a source of truth and got rid of conflicts, it would have been fine for projects. The only question would remain is how we distinguish projects in the incubating stage, because let's say we have update CLI, just as a nice example, with a few contributors, and we have Spinnaker, which is an established project, but to be honest, it doesn't seem to be going towards graduation at the moment. So whether it's a problem for us or not, if not, I think we can just say this document is a good start. Otherwise, yeah, maybe thinking about 3 states would be reasonable, but yeah, I don't have a strong opinion about that.
I don't think it's going to be possible to write down general guidance for how to handle all projects, like the update CLI versus Spinnaker being in the same stage problem. I don't think there's a way to resolve it with, you know, markdown in a repo. I think the only way to resolve it is to keep talking about it in meeting and figuring out what to do with it. So I don't know that adding a 3rd stage helps resolve any like conflict between, or not even conflict, helps resolve that ambiguity there. I don't know how other people feel. I think I cut someone off when I started talking. I'm sorry.
I agree with you, Jason. And I think what we should do is take the documents and I would say try to eliminate the one and merge it back into one. And also I found where the 3rd document is, it's kind of in the proposal template. And that's kind of where the 3rd document is. There's not really a template, but you could tell, like when we did Ortelius, we copied from, I think it was Screwdriver as our template. And I'm sure, Jason, you copied yours from somebody else. So that's where that's kind of propagating in that markdown. You know, it's like you'll see down there who's your TOC sponsor, those type of things. And this is just a repeat of what's in the process lifecycle, whatever the other one was. So I think we need to just combine these 3 and make sure we're consistent and start there.
Yeah, I think you're also highlighting we should probably have an explicit proposal template doc that instead of, because I copied Ortelius's, rather than make people figure out how to do that, just create a template and go from there. But that would be another way that would make proposing incubating projects easier for folks that are interested in doing that.
Yeah, I agree. So,
and maybe if we have I mean, how do these projects approach the CDF? How did you approach? How did Shipwright approach the CDF? Did you already know that you wanted to join the CDF, or what was your thought process?
I mean, being from Tecton, I have a long history of knowing of the CDF. I don't know how somebody who doesn't know about it would learn about it to know to propose the project. But basically, because we have such a relationship with Tecton, both in terms of people and technically, it seemed like a natural fit. People in the Shipwright community wanted to donate to some foundation because it's, you know, currently being contributed to by 2 different companies, and we'd love 3rd and 4th and 5th. And we knew that like foundation ownership would be important for that. So there was a brief conversation about CNCF, but I think it was from the beginning, like CDF is the home for this. And luckily you accepted us. So thank you. But yeah, I don't know in general how a project. I mean, it sounds like Update CLI has a similar relationship already with Jenkins, so that is a natural fit and a natural segue introduction to CDF. I don't know how something off in the world that exists that doesn't already have a pre-existing relationship, how they would come to CDF.
I think it's a negotiation with CDF members mostly, because we know that there are companies like Harness, which has drone, etc. The CDF members, so we, as a CDF governance board, you see outreach committee, we could talk with them, offer what if drone joins CDF, maybe not, but it's a viable discussion, and taking the number of CDF members by now, it could be quite a good onboarding pipeline. And it's clear value for CDF members to have their project here, because it can be a win-win collaboration beyond just membership fees.
And there's another scenario that I just thought of that we may want to consider is, how do we move a project from the CNCF over to the CDF? There's some parts of Kepton that are wanting to move over. Do they need to go through a whole proposal project, or if they're already incubating in CNCF, do we bring them over as incubating in the CDF?
Kepton is rather specific, because while it's about Kepton events. So while Kepton events is a part of Kepton at the moment, it's more or less a generic representation layer for CI events. So it can be considered a separate project. And for me, it's rather a political issue to resolve. Because CNCF, CDF relations and other things, but it doesn't seem like to be a problem process-wise, because there is this process. If you want to upload particular part of the project, then you need to justify against this criteria, and if you feed, why not?
Sounds good.
Because for Kepton, the main question would be to justify to the TC whether it's generic enough to be considered a separate project. So it's like, we had this discussion for Jenkins Kubernetes separator, where the main point was that, okay, it's just for Jenkins, and some TC members were against. But if there was a operator which was working for both Jenkins, Spinnaker, Tecton, etc., then it would be a different story. So for me, this guideline looks okay for such split-offs.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm. So, but I think that we definitely have two clear action items. And one, of course, is maybe documenting the onboarding flow better, because there is no page how to join the CDF. So I guess it's a kind of sacred knowledge. So theoretically, you go to Slack, start discussion in TOC about the project, then schedule this presentation and go through the checklist. But maybe it's something we could make more explicit. For me, it seems that first two topics are more important. And if you could agree that we want to focus on a single guide as a source of truth, then I would propose this project lifecycle MD. I'm basically just killing everything else, and that's it. What do you think about that?
For it.
Go ahead, Jason.
Oh, I'm for it. That's all.
Yeah, I think we should just go ahead and do a markdown of the merge and let people look at it.
Yep, I can take an action to propose a pull request for that.
And once that's done, then we can go ahead and I can do the proposal template to make sure it lines up with what we finally come up with.
And we also probably need to clean up the existing proposals so that to make explicit that this checklist is not the current state. Okay. Oh, so there is even documentation for the onboarding process. Incubating projects.
It just says,
Oh,
yeah, to.
oh, nice.
Well, there is a link as well there. If you go to technology on the upper bar, technology projects, and then propose a project link there. Projects and propose a project, which points to project lifecycle.
Which is good. So maybe we need to update the links a bit and to have a separate guide, maybe even in part of this document, so that we just keep everything in one place. But it seems like we have all the basic bits. Okay. So if you can iterate on that, I think that it's already a great start. So I think we can proceed then. And for now, we can park the question about the sandbox project, because clearly we have a problem elsewhere. And then we can see whether it can work for existing projects. We could really start with events seek and to see whether we could apply the current process to the standard cooking there. Okay, so moving on. So I added a topic for inclusion and naming initiative again, just to see whether we could proceed with it, because yeah, there was a proposal on the table for quite a while. We discussed it at the TOC meetings twice. There was no particular opposition. There were some concerns about whether it maps to a particular SIG, like best practices, which we can probably remove. But for the rest, it seemed that everyone was okay with going forward. So I just started the vote whether we should request membership from the Inclusion Naming Initiative so that we could officially be listed as a member. And so my question to TOC members is whether you want to vote on that right now, and whether we could basically decide at the next meeting.
I'm good with moving forward with it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to vote now or do a mail vote, either way.
I would rather suggest mail vote. So if you could drop your votes to the mailing list, it would be nice. So for me, recently, the experience wasn't quite good in terms of mailing lists, because the web interface doesn't seem to be working well, because here, for example, I see a binding +1 from here, but I believe that somebody else voted binding +1 to this proposal in another thread, and it doesn't even show up here. So probably I need to figure out.
I replied to the email. I don't see that response there, but I did reply to the email.
Yes, so looks like groups.io works quite strangely, because I did receive your response, but it doesn't show up here.
Right.
But yeah, we can just rely on the mailing list thread for now.
Try going to the second page, or does that take you to the next topic? No, not next topic, the page. So go back. And over on the right, hit the, yeah, and see if that goes to the next. No, just 1 of 1. Okay, just curious.
It says 1 of 2 here or whatever, but
yeah,
go anywhere. Okay, so we can discuss a group user experience of groups IO later. But yeah, I definitely suggest to vote. But yeah, maybe it's a question we need to figure out later, because this link is what is referenced from my CDF TOC repository. And since we have issues with navigating it on our own, but yeah, for others, it might be even bigger problem. So I guess it's something for me to just create a follow-up ticket in CD Foundation to see what we could do about that. Okay. Anything else on this topic? Yeah, by the way, I also created a ticket in GitHub issues, so you can vote there as well. And yeah, the next update from the SIG events. So, Patrice, would you like to do that? Or is it you? Okay.
I prepared a couple of slides if I can share.
Yeah, just go ahead.
Okay. Hopefully you can see the slides.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, very briefly. Yeah, so you know already the charter. So we're looking on how events help to create CI/CD system with the couple architecture that is easy to scale and make resilient failures. Okay, this didn't change. So the companies involved in alphabetical order at the moment in terms of people self declared as members is this. So we have a good diversity there, which I think is good. So areas of focus I wanted to mention that we have 2 meetings going on. Each of them is happening bi-weekly. So we pretty much have a meeting every week. And the first one is a Sig Meeting, where we discuss things like user stories, use cases, and we have presentations. And we also discuss about advocacy efforts. And then we have a second meeting, which is more focused on the vocabulary specifically that we are trying to define, shared vocabulary for CI/CD events. And we also work there on the proof of concept. And in terms of the deliverables that we're working on, we have protocol spec and the protocol name and the SDK. So just expanding a bit on the meetings, this is a list of at least some of the presentation that we had in the main meeting. So we had ARG events presenting, Shruti presenting the work she's done with cloud events in Jenkins, Alexandra Fedorova from Fedora presenting how they do CI events-based CI for Fedora project, which is interesting. So Matthias presented the Eiffel project, and we had a presentation from Eric on enterprise scale CI concept, and then a couple of presentations on projects related to our events, one from Maurice and one from Deepav. In terms of advocacy, some of the things that we have done, this is not an exhaustive list probably, but some things that came to mind. We had the podcast episode, we had the BOF at CDCon 2021, we had a presentation at FOSDEM, and then for the POC specifically, it was presented by Mauricio, the Captain User Group, and we have a couple of upcoming talks. One is at DevOps World, and one at KubeCon 2021. And also we have a slot at the CDF booth for KubeCon 2021 for the SIG events. In terms of the vocabulary meeting, what we worked on, we created kind of 4 buckets for events. So core events, source code version events, CI events, and CD events. This is not meant as an exhaustive list. It's just that we wanted to contain not containered, but contain the limit the initial scope and focus on these 4 buckets, and then we might have more events and buckets in future. And this is the kind of logical diagram of the POC that we built, and we use Tekton and Captain. There is a flavor of this POC, I think, with Jenkins as well. And in this case, so we use Captain as an orchestrator. We use Tekton to run a build and a deploy pipeline. And the cool thing is that we have Knative events in the middle that act as a broker for events. And the events that are on the broker are only CD events. So we have translation layers in Tekton and Captain to make sure that the only type of events that is on the broker that is exchanged between the different platforms is the common type of events. And then we have a layer underneath where you demonstrate that in this case, we only have the Cloud Events player, which visualizes the events as a list. But because all the events that are going to the broker are the same kind and the same structure and the same common semantics, you could build application to view, monitor, and measure your workflow across platforms because you get the consistent type of events on the different platform. So the idea that we are trying to demonstrate with this proof of concept, as long as you change your application or you have an adapter layer for your application to go into the common format, then you don't have to do all the one-to-one integration with the different platforms. So you don't have to integrate Tekton with Captain and Tekton with Jenkins and so forth. You just go to the common event format, and then you can have interoperability between the application. And then you can also build an ecosystem of platforms that help you visualize the overall workflow. So this is kind of the main thing that we're trying to convey with the proof of concept. So yeah, we're a bit short in time. I have a recording and it will be in the KubeCon talk and in the DevOps World talk as well. If folks are interested to see the demo. And in terms of deliverables, so we have the protocol spec, which is made of the share vocabulary and the binding to cloud events. And we are planning to make a new project for this. So with its own GitHub organization and one project within would be the spec, and then we would have the bindings and the SDKs and everything in the same org. The name is work in progress. We have a few ideas like CD events, lifecycle events. It's very liked because it's not specific to CD and more generic. Also, we have some proposal of name more like Semios, which takes from Greek for messages, I believe. So once we have the name, we can create the project. Mm-hmm. And an initial SDK was created, but it's limited. It's for Go, and it was developed for the POC, but it's not complete. So we need contributions there. And we have a few projects already able to produce this events that we're specifying. And one is the Tekton Cloud Events Controller. The other one is Jenkins. This was a GSOC project, as you're probably aware. And also Captain is interested in implementing native support for this format of events. I mean, today is quite draft still, but there is definitely interest from the community.
Yeah. In the current state, would it benefit to the project if it's added as incubating to the continuous delivery foundation? Because if we have two adopter projects, it already seems to be quite a good thing to start highlighting.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's the plan, and it lines up pretty close with the requirements. So we still have a little bit of work to do on getting the name, getting some of the other pieces together, but that's the direction that we're headed.
Yeah.
So is events mainly closely tied to Kubernetes ecosystem?
No.
No.
Okay, because I saw a lot of Kubernetes references in your POC.
Yes, so the POC is definitely built on top of Kubernetes, and that's our starting point. But that's why in the components list, kind of have two parts. One is the share vocabulary, and the other one is the cloud events binding. And so the share vocabulary is really generic. It just defines like common semantic for events for application in the CI/CD space. And then one of the bindings the first binding that we're working with is cloud events, but we want to keep the two things separated because we don't want to say we are restricted to cloud events. So we are not restricted to cloud native or Kubernetes specifically. So we can imagine use cases where in future we can bind this very same vocabulary to other kind of transports and other kind of environments.
So can this cloud events work with a hosted Kubernetes like AWS EKS?
Why not?
Yeah, there's a discussion that we have going on that has to deal with the federation of events. So for example, and we've identified a list of like repositories that we have to deal with. So let's say you take a Python module and you upload the new version to PyPy. That should trigger an event for everybody that's listening to let them know that they may need to go ahead and rebuild all of their Docker containers because there's a new version of the Python module. Now, when you talk about that going worldwide, it poses some problems, and that's some of the things that we're looking at on the shared vocabulary and the events binding is how to handle that type of scenario.
Okay. Yeah. It does look like I would like to learn a bit more on how does it work in a proper enterprise context.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So maybe
whoever is working close, because in our enterprise level within Yahoo, there's a lot of push towards a cloud, especially AWS, and using EKS for running applications. So I'm looking at more on how do we do native CI/CD within that worldview.
So yeah, maybe one thing for information for non-Kubernetes use cases. I started exploring whether I could just route cloud events through OpenTelemetry because I have a Docker Compose-based setup, and I was thinking whether I could actually reuse Jenkins Cloud Events plugin. So maybe routing through OpenTelemetry traceability would be one of the ways to make it more generic. Or maybe not.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea.
Oh,
sure.
Sounds interesting.
Well, it's rather question whether you can get a traceability after that, because it needs additional metadata. But yeah, in principle, having cloud events and OpenTelemetry integrated between each other, it's floating around anyway. But right now, it doesn't seem to be a case. So let's see. Okay, so thanks for the summary.
Yes. Yeah, the last thing, I know we are at time. I already mentioned that we plan to create a project. We are working on a name selection. I wanted to just ask whether it would make sense for the SIG to ask for help to the CDF in terms of if we come up with a name, checking if there is any problem with the name in terms of trademarks or any recommendation in terms of branding. That's something we can discuss then in the next meeting as well.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, Isaac was the sponsor for the SIG. and it's not part of the TOC anymore. So I don't know if we need to select a new sponsor. I'm not sure how it works for the SIG, if there needs to be a sponsor at the time of creation, or you need a sponsor in general. In case I'd be happy to be a sponsor for.
No concern about that. So what actually makes sense is to have a liaison to the TOC from the special interest group. So a person who participates in the TOC meetings from time to time and gives updates like you did today, and to communicate if there are any demands, help needed, etc. At the same time, this contributor doesn't have to be a TOC member. Just but yeah, if you work on that, if Steve, Fatih, all of you are participants on the SIG events, I think that right now we don't have any problem with the current setting.
Okay.
So what do others think? Do we need an official sponsor?
We should probably just update the document, letting people know who like Andre is going to be the sponsor for the SIG events, just so somebody has, if they need to contact somebody, they just have a current contact. That's all I'd worry about.
So basically, it's not rather a TOC sponsor, it's rather a SIG chair or SIG leader or whatever we call it. Okay, works for me.
All right.
So yeah, I guess TikTok team is also taking the calendar pop-up, and so yeah. So Steve, do you want to discuss Kubernetes Cost today?
No, we can move it to next time. I just heard that our Kubernetes cost for the CDF is running about $200,000 a year. Just like to see if we can look into the reason why we have such a high cost.
You mean Kubernetes?
All of our cloud providers that we're paying.
But yeah, the Lines part of that is Jenkins on Asia. But yeah, we have other projects also.
Yeah, there may be, we may want to look at, and we could discuss this next time, but that's the idea is what we're spending it on, if there's ways to get the cost down a little bit.
Or have somebody sponsoring it.
Yeah. We can get into details next time.
Okay. And yeah, probably we could make infrastructure a theme for the next meeting, because there are other requests like transferring AWS account. Also, Jenkins X was interested in transferring the GCP infrastructure to the CDF officially. So maybe we could just match everything and focus the most of the TOC meeting on these infrastructure matters. Does it make sense?
Sounds good.
Okay, then we will arrange it accordingly, and next meeting is September 28th. So thanks everyone.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.